Hi knitters, welcome to PJ Knits. My name's Penny. I live in Central Illinois and I'm a knitter, a blogger, a YouTube podcaster, and an Instagrammer. Hi everybody. Welcome or welcome back to PJ Knits. As I said, I live in Central Illinois, and in Central Illinois today it is Wednesday, October 22nd. And happy birthday to my lovely niece, Connie. Not that she watches, but maybe. Happy birthday, honey. Love you to bits. I've been trying all week to do this video, and either the sun's not cooperated or my phone rang in the middle of it, and then all of a sudden it was like there was things that I thought I could tweak from last one. So this is like take 2, 3, whatever. But anyway, let's get started. Please grab a cuppa and your knitting because this may be a little long one. I'm going to try to do the first half about my knitting, the second half about Norway, but there will be some Norway interspersed in this first part as well. So it's beautiful outside. We've had, since the last few days, it's been very windy in Central Illinois and chilly, like 50s, 60s, and even lower last night. And I had to turn my heat on, but I turned it way down today because it was just cold. And I don't want to be cold and or hot while I'm knitting. And so I turned it on and turned it down. But anyway, let's get started with the knitting, and because I've got a lot to talk about. If you are a new subscriber, thank you for stopping by. I hope that you find some inspiration and maybe a community here with PJ Knits. I do so appreciate that. Just some things, the housekeeping kind of things I want to tell you all about. I do not edit the video, or if I do, it's very minimally. So this is what you get when you come to PJ Knits. Second of all, I have been, as you all know, traveling a lot seems like the last month and a half. I have one more traveling bit this weekend, and so I've not been able to catch all of our Zooms on Saturday nights, but we do have a Zoom group every Saturday night, even when I'm not there. I am so appreciative of those who show up and welcome new people to that. All of that information you will be able to find on the PJ Knits Ravelry thread group in Ravelry. It's called PJ Knits. I'm PJ Knits 1 if you want to look at my projects, and PJ Knits is the Ravelry group. I will link everything that I talk about, or almost everything that I talk about, down below in the description box in the next couple of days. Doesn't always happen the first day that this goes live. So just wanted to give you kind of a heads up on that. Mistletoe's third quarter. This is a little knit along that we have been ongoing for quite some time, and it is socks. And there's a thread on the Ravelry group where you can post your finished socks and kind of entice us to knit more socks. I love seeing all of those. And at the end of every quarter, I choose from the past quarter a winner randomly, and they get to pick out their next sock pattern. So for the third quarter of 2025, it is Knitting Dancer, and it is post 292. Congratulations. And I can't wait to see what sock pattern you choose next to knit on. So check out that thread, and it's just a lot of fun. I need inspiration. I have been a sock knitter. I've knit a lot of socks in the past for my friend Norma, who's passed away some years ago. And I have quite a few in my drawer as well, but upcoming I'll show you that there's possibilities for more. Anyway, what I wanted to just put that out there. What I have been doing with my sock yarn, as if you've been following me for a while, is doing Musselburghs. And I love the Musselburgh pattern. I've talked about this, before. I love it because it uses a whole skein, almost a whole skein, out of my PYS, which is also known as Penny's Yarn Shop, because that's my stash. It looks like a yarn shop. And I love doing those. So I have really kind of taken the sock yarn that I would have been knitting socks for myself, and I'm putting it into Musselburghs. And for a lot of my Musselburghs, they have been going, I'm just stacking them up, and November, December-ish, I'm going to donate them to a charity, more than likely, unless there's somebody in the family says, oh, I really love that one. So that is what I have been doing with my sock yarn. And I just want to talk about some Musselburghs that have been, one that's been finished, and then one or two that's in progress. Sorry about that. Because I tried doing this yesterday, things are not the way they normally would be around here. But anyway, this first one is what I'm calling Musselburgh Number 12. This is one that I took, partially started on the plane to Norway, and I knit it a little bit on the plane, and then it became my project in Norway when we were on the bus, going places to see some excursions, to see some sights in Norway. And then after our mystery knit along that we did on the ship during the cruise, after that was finished, I went back to this Musselburgh Number 12 and I finished it. So here it is. And I'll try to get some good lighting here. The sun comes and goes right now. There you go. And this one, I just love this one as well. And just to kind of give you some details on that particular Musselburgh, that was out of Suburban Stitcher yarn, out of probably my PYS from when, I want to say, around pandemic time, in the fall, winter, maybe. I kind of think that that's what that yarn was from. But it is a Suburban Stitcher yarn. Slow it down, Penny. And in the Sweet Adeline colorway. And I started it back in September, the 18th of September, and I finished it on the ship on October 11th. I technically normally do the adult medium is what I use, and I always use a size 4 needle. I have done a size large, I think the one that's out in the car that I did not bring in, that's in a darker yarn, Malabrigo yarn, sock yarn in a brownish colorway. I thought I needed a manly kind of color in my donation box for that. And I believe that one is an adult large, and that will be, I'll talk about that in future episodes. But this is her pure sock base is what it was, 100% superwash merino, comes in a 438 yard to 100 gram skein, and I used 359 yards or 82 grams. So I had a tad left with this. I also have another partial skein, and I'm not sure what it will be, maybe another Musselburgh down the road. Not 100% sure on what that will be, but that is Musselburgh Number 12 and my finished object for this particular episode. Now, while we're on the Musselburgh train, I'll show you a couple that I do have in progress. And this first one was one that I worked on coming home, on the plane home. And this is, I don't even know that I have it in my book yet. I don't think I've put it in. I don't see it in my, oh, it is in my journal. This is one that I cast on before I left on actually it was in August that I cast this on, because I needed a new Musselburgh to be working on here at the house. And so this particular one was already on the needles when I went. After I finished my Sweet Adeline one, I picked this back up, and this one got a little bit of work on it on the plain back, not a whole lot. And when I got home, I had another one also in progress that I wanted to work on, and I'll talk about that. But this one is out of the yarn that my yarny friends and we went last October to Leading Men Fiber Arts in Clinton, Illinois, which is fairly close to where I live here in Pekin. and I had a morning of where they let our group dye yarns. And so I dyed 2 skeins of this. This is in their Showstopper colorway, and I have named my colorway, finally, after all this time, Knitting on the Porch, because if you know that that's where I love to spend my time, is knitting on the porch. And unfortunately, not a whole lot of that has been going on. I was out there yesterday morning early before it really got chilly, but yeah, it's a little windy right now, a little chilly, but I have sweaters so I can go back out. But anyway, what I wanted to tell you about this one is I believe that this one, I had originally thought that I would give this one away, but after looking at it on the screen yesterday, I dyed 2 skeins of this yarn, so I would have a secondary if I wanted to knit it for myself after that. But after I saw this on the screen, I was so pleasantly surprised, because my yarn, this is what it looks like, dyed. And I wasn't quite sure of what I was going to get when I got done. And so this is the colors that all came together, a pink and a blue and a little white with the speckled. So when I looked at it on the screen, I did not notice this when I was knitting on it, but I noticed that the pink is kind of striping on it. And I'm like, I'm keeping this for myself because I just love this. And I love the way this happened. Don't know how I dyed it that way. I am never going to be a yarn dyer. So y'all who dye yarns, I'm not going to encroach on your livelihood, but I was pleasantly surprised at what happened here. And so I am so thrilled that it is doing that striping with the pink, and I can't wait to see if it continues. So this one is coming out of the charity pile and is going back into mine. Now, I'm not actively knitting on it right now because I have one other that I cast on while in Norway. And that one is Musselburgh Number 13. And the reason I cast this on is I'm participating in the Down Cellar Studios pigskin party. First time I've ever done that. Got enticed by our Saturday night Zoomers. And one of the challenges for October is to do something in a pink yarn. And while I was in Norway, I took this yarn with me. And while I was in Norway, I cast on another one. This one will definitely be for charity as well. But I cast on one and this yarn is an unknown yarn. I have no idea what it is. I know it's a fingering weight. It was in PYS without a label. And so I have this bright, bright pink. It's very pink. Every bit of pink that you can see. And interesting things as I'm videoing here today, as I'm podcasting today, that I'm seeing how this really brightens up. You can tell in my living room that the season is changing, because normally the sunshine would not be blowing these out at this time of the morning. It would be lovely. And I do have my door open as well. So you're getting a lot of the brightness from that. And I don't know, as the seasons go by, maybe I'm going to have to move it to the other side, to the other chair. We'll see all about that. But it is kind of a Halloween themey week. And so I am using my stitch stoppers that my friend Annetta gave me last year. And I have it in my Snoopy knitting bag for right now. So this is kind of the direction that I go with my sock yarns right now is Musselburghs. I love doing those. I love taking those with me along and being able to knit on those, much like those of you who do a lot of socks do as well. So some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about in the kind of sort of knitting portion is let's start with a knit along that the Zoomers are doing on Saturday night, and anybody is welcome. This is a holiday sweater knit along. Our intentions is to knit some sort of holiday sweater. I gave some ideas the last episode. And again, it doesn't have to be Christmassy. It can be Starry Nights. It could be whatever you want it to. My knit-alongs are always low pressure. Maybe you don't finish until next year. I don't know that I will get mine finished this year. Goal was for Thanksgiving. I've not cast mine on yet because, as you're going to see, I have a lot of things I want to knit, as we all do the minute it turns a little chilly, right? But anyway, we're hosting this knit along in the Zoom, and there will be there's a thread in the Ravelry group to show us your plans, show us your yarns, show us something you'd like to do. Maybe this isn't the year for you, and maybe future plans for a holiday sweater. I have finally chosen mine. It is Christmas Bell by Isabel Kramer. And after I got back from Norway, I finally chose my yarns. I had two of my yarns I had in PYS from another project that I had worked on, and then two that I had to buy. I didn't know what colors I wanted to do. I vacillated for a long time about the colors here. I saw Chili Peppers. She did one of these on Ravelry, and it was in a green and a red, and the colors, kind of the colors that I have chosen as well. But I was thinking, well, maybe I wanted a red sweater with a sparkly ornaments at the top. Maybe I wanted to do that. Sparkling ornaments. I had one of those. And so I really didn't know until I went to the yarn shop last week, and there Erin was unpacking a pine, and the week before I had looked, and she only had one skein, so I'm like, okay, it's not going to be pine, and I'm not sure I really want that. But what happened was she opened it up, and she had enough skeins for a sweater, and so it kind of took off from there, took root. And I decided I wanted to do kind of a Victorian theme. And it seems to be like this Christmas knitting, actual Christmas knitting, is kind of taking a Victorian color thought process. And as I say that, I have some fabrics in the basement from when I worked at the quilt shop and quilted a lot that I bought for a table runner that was in Victorian colors. I might have to pull that out and think about a table runner in Victorian colors. I'm all of a sudden having this Victorian thought process. But anyway, this is what we came up with. And then there was two other colors, and we thought like a cream, and then maybe a gold, maybe a yellow. I was leaning towards yellow because I think that's kind of what Chili Pepper used in hers. And then Erin had an idea about a kind of this golden color. A topazy is what I'm calling it, because topaz, golden topaz, back when I have a November birthday, and that was my birthstone. And back in the day, golden topaz was the birthstone color. And so I do have a ring this color as well. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, what I've decided is to give these a whirl. These are going to be my four colors, kind of doing the Victorian look for my sweater. This is going to be the main color of my sweater, and then this will be interspersed in those ornaments. So I'm totally loving my choices there, and I hope that some of you will join us and maybe just knit along. Our thought was to have these done by Thanksgiving, and since I've not started mine and we are getting very close to Christmas, and I have 3 other sweaters that I'm dying to finish, I'm not sure that mine will get done till Christmas or maybe afterwards, but I'm going to give it the college try, and I hope that you can that you will join us as well. Feel free, no pressure, no pressure. So the next knit along that I'm participating in is I am going to do, starting on the 27th of October, I'm going to do Arne and Carlos's stocking knit along that they're doing. Now, again, I can be easily enabled, and just being around them, soaking up with them, and listening to them and watching their videos, I decided I'm going to do a stocking. I'm going to participate in their stocking knit along, because if you participate in it, you get the clues every so often, and it's free. If you wait till the end, you got to buy the pattern. I'm just saying. And if you were on the cruise, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, when I got home, I ordered some yarn. Let's reverse this for just a second. Let me tell you this, and you may be disappointed in me, but I didn't buy a whole lot of yarn when I was on the cruise. I got a lot of inspiration. I went a lot of different directions. I wanted to buy yarn. I went a lot of directions, but some of the things that kept me from doing it was I really hadn't zeroed into what I really wanted to buy and what I wanted to knit. I thought I knew, but when we got to have the yarn factory, Hannah's Log, what's the name of the yarn? Oh, gosh. Hillsvåg. Holy moly, there was a Hannesvåg. Hillsvåg. Anyway, when we got to the factory, I still hadn't decided, and I didn't want to just buy, and then come home and say, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Because I really hadn't zoned in to the pattern that I wanted to do. So while I was at the yarn factory, I didn't buy any yarn. I had somebody buy me one skein, and I'll talk about that down the road. But I knew that coming home that the nice thing about the yarn was that a Hillsvåg yarn is now being carried by Woolen Company in Elgin. And so I knew that when I got home, I could get the yarn. When I decide what I want to do, I still am undecided. I have a plan. I'll talk about that. But I'm still not sold on it, and it really hasn't settled in to say, this is what I want to do. So I don't have a whole lot of Norwegian yarn, but when I got home, I wanted to order some yarn. And my first up was, I knew that Wool & Co. carried the yarn that is recommended for the stocking knit along by Arne Carlos. So I came home. They have a newsletter. I had already subscribed to that with a link to the colors that they were going to be using. And so when I got home, I ordered from Wool & Co. I ordered the Rowan Norwegian wool that they're using in their stocking, and I ordered it in the colorways they had. Now, as you see these colors, to me, again, these are very Victorian colors. They're not super bright, and they're very much in keeping with where I first started out with my sweater. This is not super, super red or super, super orange, or very, very bright, but this is going to be the colorways that are going to be in my stocking, and this stocking is going to be for me. I have a stocking or two, but they're all peanuts, and I wanted, again, I'm embracing my husband's Norwegian heritage and trying to stay in that vibe. So I ordered this when I got home. So this is kind of a mail call of sorts, and still of sorts. Reverse that, sorts. Anyway, so that's a knit along I'm going to be participating. While we're in the whole buying thing after the fact, while I heard about this on one of Arne and Carlos's videos before we left, and then they talked about it quite a bit on our cruise. But they have used to design yarns for Regia, however you want to call it, and over the course of a while have separated from that partnership and have went out on their own and now are doing Regia-like yarn under the Arne and Carlos Socks and More 4-ply yarn. Now, the colorways that are out there now are the same, as I found out afterwards, are the same colorways that they had done for Regia, but they bought the rights, or they had the rights, like the Taylor Swift thing. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? To come back to them. So now that they could duplicate the Regia, and that's what is out there now, 6 to 8 colors. And luckily, Wool & Co. also carries them. So I just ordered one of them and got it with my others. And so this is going to be socks for me. When I got this yarn, I recognized this colorway, and I don't have it. I don't have it in my socks. I'll have to check my Ravelry page and see, my project page, and see if I had done it for Norma. But this is going to be perfect for blue jeans, and so I will be knitting socks this year. And here is the colorway. The colorway is called Summer Night Color, and it's going to be perfect for blue jeans. And I can't wait to knit it up. And it also does that striping as it has done before. So I'm super excited about this. And I'm not sure, but this just seems softer than the Regia did back in when I did a lot of socks out of it, or had a lot of PYS in it. So that is kind of like the mail call that came after the fact, because I needed yarn. I was feeling that I should have purchased more, but anyway. So one more mail call that I want to share with you is also when I got back, feeling the love of coming back from an Arne and Carlos cruise. I went out to Amazon and picked up a book that I did not have. I have several of their books, and picked it up and got it. And these are the sweaters I'm kind of looking at. I'm not sure that I want to put all the lice in there. I'm kind of thinking just that part or just that part. So you can see where I'm going. I just wanted to delve into that a little bit further to make a decision. I don't want it to be a bad decision. And so there's some fun things for sure in the book. And printing is like 20, they reprinted this several times. I think this would be cool. I don't know that I want to do all the color work and throw it against my door, but it gets a little drafty at my doors in the wintertime. Sorry. Oh, sorry, that way. That's what you want to see. And so that would be kind of fun, but I don't know that I want to do a lot of color work with that. So there's some other things in here as well. And so I had to add this to my collection. This is the women's sweater. I want to show you this. And if you, I'm going to try and do a longer video of all my slides from the trip, but our tour guide, Elsa, in Oslo, had a Marius sweater on that was gorgeous, and I took a covert picture of her in it. So, because I really liked the colorways, the cream and the red and the blue. So I'm kind of looking at that as well. I just really can't 100% make that decision up as to what I want. But there's another option. I don't know that I want to do all that lice on there. I think I would just rather have a plain bottom all to the bottom and maybe keep it up here. So that was one of my purchases after I got home, kind of like a little bit of mail call. Okay. Finishing up a couple of things that I want to share with you, and I wasn't going to share these yesterday, but I decided to add it in today. As you know, I keep a knitting journal. I keep a lot of journals. I had a Norway journal, and I've started a new journal that I'm going to tell you about next time when we're away from the Norway. But I do a knitting journal every year, and I'm surprised that I have so many blank pages still in my my journal for 2025. Is it a sign that I've not been knitting as enough? I know that I'll tell you all about it next time. Some other things that are going into the other journal. But anyway, I do a journal and I keep track of a lot of things, and I will actually revisit my journals, especially my knitting journal, as we get closer to the end of the year, and we'll talk about, and I'll show you a little bit of how I keep my journal and what I like to do. But what I have been doing is sharing with you at the end of every month is my in and out of yarn. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about that. My out for the month of September was 122 grams, and that makes it for the year I am plus 1759 grams. I bought no yarn in September. It was all October. I got to add these in for October. But I know with the sweaters that I'd love to complete by the end of the year, I should be okay, right? So one of the knit-alongs that we are kind of sort of doing between now and the end of the year also is the fish or cut bait. And what that is we're either going to, just for 2025 projects, and this is my goal, and some of you are joining in, and some of you are not. That's fine. But my goal for 2025 is to have, at the end of the year, no whips that I have started in 2025. We'll tackle the previous years down the road, but these are the ones, and I have them on a little posties at the top. Those are the ones that I have for 2025 that I would like to finish either fish or cut bait. I did have one here that has been cut bait, and that was my Oslo hat. I was not liking the tight stitches that I was getting. I might in the new year recast that on, and I had all these Musselburghs and other hats, and so I'm like, I was kind of like back from Norway, and I'm like, I didn't knit on an Oslo hat in Oslo, so was kind of losing that whole thought process. So that's kind of a knit along and self-imposed goal that I have, is to be at least free of all of those whips come the end of the year. And I think most of them are doable. One of them, as I said before, is a summer sweater, but that's not to say that you can't work on that in the wintertime. So I have that, and then two sweaters that I'm going to share with you, because we're at a half an hour already, and I probably have a half an hour of Norway to talk to you about. By the way, my mug is from my friend Becky from my birthday last year. My shirt is from Southern Stitches. She does a monthly t-shirt club. And then sometimes she sells just one by ones, and so I did this last year. I love the long sleeve ones. That's and she does them. I have not looked at it at the club because I don't need a whole lot of short sleeve t-shirts, but I do love the long sleeve ones, and I like to kick them around. So this is the shirt from last year that I got from her. So we're keeping in with the Halloween theme, but what I wanted to share with you, first of all, was a sweater that's in progress. This is called Amber by Cheryl Mokhtari, and I have been working on it for quite a while, for sure. And I have vacillated. I have told you about this sweater right before, that I have enough yarn to go 3/4 sleeves. And last week, I finally made the decision that it was going to be shorter sleeves. I was really I love this pattern, but I was over the texture and over wanting to continue doing it. So I finished off the sleeves, and I cast on for the button bands. And the only reason I'm bringing this back in to show you again is I have done the sleeves. There's a lot of ends in this, but what I'm doing is I'm bragging a bit on this, because the button band is number one. It starts with an Italian cast on. Now, on the hem, the rib hem, I did do the sewn Italian cast. I think I did the Italian cast off, bind off, or the sewn bind off, whatever. I did do that, but when I got to the sleeves, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm over that. I've told you guys this. I am kind of sort of a lazy knitter. I'm like, let's get this done. And I don't want to have to think about what I'm doing. But I did the hem like that, and then on the sleeve hems, I just bound off in pattern with a larger needle, and I like that. But then we get to the button band, and the first note is to Italian cast on. And I did it. I'm proud of myself, because I am a lazy knitter. I don't like change. But what I did is I went out to, oh my gosh, what is the name of her podcast? All right, I'm going to pull my notes up. I used her tutorial for starting out the button band with the Italian cast on and the double knit. It's been a long time since I double knit. I took a class years ago, and I'm like, okay. So many of the cardigan patterns have that double knit button band, and so I made myself start it. I'm not finished with the button band, but bragging, I am bragging. I did both, and I'm like pretty dang pleased with that. But I used, Tasha's Mostly Knitting. She has a tutorial for both casting on the Italian cast on and doing the getting started on that double knit button band. And I love it, and I'm super pleased. And I'm just gonna, flash that. There's a lot of ends to it, let's put it that way, when we're done. But I'm hoping by the weekend to be, and so I got buttons from Mood Fabrics. I ordered them kind of like sight unseen. And so I have buttons that have a little, not little fleck, but a little, there you go. There you go. So I have buttons for it. And I held off doing the buttonholes until I received those yesterday. And so I've got my button band going, and I am so pleased with this. I am putting one more button into it than it calls for, because I did lengthen mine about 3 inches. And when I tried it on this morning, the button band was kind of down here, and I kind of like to have it up here. I don't want it to fall off. But I'm super, super pleased about doing this and making myself do it. It's time consuming, but it gives a nice structure to it. So I'm so happy. And this is where we were last time. When last I showed it to you, I was on this sleeve, and then I finished the sleeve and then did the other sleeve. So, and then went to my button band. So I'm pretty pleased, in the progress in that, and for the challenges that I made myself do. Now, the last knit I'm going to talk about is my Seachange. I did take this on the Norway cruise, and I did work on it a little bit, quite a bit, before we got our mystery cowl, which was several days before we went to Hillsbog when we were in Bergen. So maybe like the 2 or 3 days I worked on it, because it was all stockinette and I was going up from the bottom up. And this is Seachange, Seachange. Norwegian inspired pullover by Jennifer Steingass. I took most of my blue yarn and one of the cream. I was kind of hoping I would get to the color work, but other things kind of happened while we were doing there. It became obvious to do other things. And so I did get to the point where I now have joined the sleeves and everything like that. I'm working towards the decreases to get to the yoke, but I'm not working on this right now because I want to finish my amber, but I've got that done. And it was nice just to knit around and around on this the first day or so on the ship as well, or when I got done with the clue for the 2 days. But what I am going to point out to you is, and this is like a segue into the Norway trip. So let's just say this: if you're not interested in the Norway trip, thank you so much for coming by. If you are, maybe you take a little break and get a refill on your cuppa and grab some more knitting. If you are interested in it, thank you for sticking around, and we're going to move right into kind of like a Norway synopsis, as it would be. So I'm going to refer a lot to my notes, my notebook that I have, that I kept my journal while we were there, but I just want to say this. This was an amazing trip. A trip of a lifetime for me, something that my husband and I always thought we would do. Maybe not a cruise. Definitely knitting was not in that thought process. And as I have said before, his grandparents came over from Norway. So there is a Norwegian heritage there. I love Norway. I've loved Norway since I was a kid, since we had that globe that had that mountain ridge going up this spoon-shaped country, and just the amazingness of it. So I've always been thought Norway would be fun. Didn't know a whole lot about it, other than the geography that you get. But anyway, I've always wanted to go and do. So trip of a lifetime. Arne and Carlos are so warming, welcoming. Arne is a technician when it comes to knitting. Carlos is wonderful for telling stories and for telling us backgrounds, where they came from, what they did, how they got to where they were, and so much fun and very welcoming. And I will say this, kind of, starting at the end, one of the last couple of days on the ship, Carlos said, "Hey, join us for breakfast tomorrow morning. We haven't been able to spend as much time with you as we'd like to. So come down. We meet at 8 o'clock, such and such place." And so we did. And delightful. That's the kind of men they are. And I'm going to call them young men because I'm older than they are, but not a whole lot older, but just very nice men, and a nice trip, okay? And I will tell you that the travel agent is Aller Travel, Gita. Amazing job getting us where we needed to be, helping out whenever needed, giving us information. Fantastic. The ship Hurtigruten, which is a Norwegian line, 9 decks, small amount of people in there. I'll talk about that in a bit. Excuse me. But what I want to say is we started out with 48 people. We had 46. Most of them were knitters, including some of the husbands. This was the nicest group of people. As the days went on, you met more of them, and you got to sit with them and hear their story. And just, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this, how much friendships mean in cultivating that. And I'm hoping that some of us keep in contact with others if we're in their neck of the woods, as it would be. But there was just a comrade, you know what I mean, fun, community being built there. And it all started with Arne and Carlos and just the love of knitting and the places we were going. So I'm going to talk about some of the people that we dealt with, met and spent time with. And first of all, I'm going to talk about Catherine and Sandra, sisters, that we got to spend a lot of knitting time with. They are gracious ladies. Love them. Sandra in Ecuador, Catherine in Texas. And we were able, on our very last night in Bergen, when there was a smaller group at the hotel that were flying out the next day, got to spend some time in the bar with Catherine, and also then ate dinner with her. And then I was lucky to share a cab out with her to the Bergen airport. And I'm so sorry, Catherine, that I didn't get to give you a hug and tell you how much I enjoyed our time together and how grateful I was for you and Sandra so much, meeting you and spending time with you. It was so much fun. They shared their seasick meds with me because we had although I had Dramamine, they had a better one that worked better. And so they were gracious to share those with me. They went on some excursions that were fantastic. It was lovely to hear about those. And they understood or saw very early that I was a turquoise lover. And on one of their excursions off the ship, they came back with a stitch marker, a little turquoise sheep ball. And that's just the kind of friendships that were being built. And thank you so much. I put it on my turquoise sweater, reminiscent of the Norway thing. So I wanted to share that kind of as a segue into the Norway portion of this. And I know it's going to be a long one, and I thank you so much. But anyway, I will try to kind of keep it shorter. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I totally understand if you cut out. You know, you can call me you know, the Illinois grocery girl, because I'm going to talk a while. So to give you just some background here, I live in Central Illinois. Jelaine and I she lives in Peoria, I live in Pekin. I left my house at 1:30 on Friday. And I'm going to refer back to that because the dates really get going here. I left on Friday and we flew to O'Hare, where we joined up with our friends Julie and Kendra. Kendra came from Indy, and Julie lives in Chicago. And we got on our plane, flew out of O'Hare. It was an overnight flight, flew from O'Hare to Frankfurt, and then had a layover in Frankfurt, and then flew from Frankfurt to Oslo. Now, I'm going to say this, and apologies to everyone. Frankfurt is a nightmare. O'Hare is a nightmare internationally. Frankfurt is all apron landings, which means you have to come down the stairs off the plane onto a bus and be bussed underground to various places. And then you finally make it to your destination, and not a whole lot of chairs, and then sit and wait. So a lot of waiting. I'm just going to say that. We'll cut to the chase. Once we hit Oslo, and it was an overnight flight. So, you know, I can say that we were, you know, Oslo's 7 hours ahead of us. So it was a long, long haul, but I don't know. Anyway, let's just say it was a long, long flight. Had great food on the plane, great company for sure. And so we landed in Oslo, and then we had to board a train at the airport called Fly to Jet. And in Norway, everything is cashless. So, you know, you pay a credit card. You pay for your credit card on your credit card for everything. Got a little oh, shoot. Back it up here. Got a little URL thing to scan to get on the train, which is that. It's called Fly to Jet and Fly to Get. I want to call Fly to Jet every time. Fly to Get. And we wound up downtown Oslo looking for our hotel. It was fairly close, but we were trying to get... There was a lot of walking, and we were toting these suitcases this whole time, and happened into a mall so that we could get to an elevator to get where we needed to go, and then finally found our hotel, checked into our hotel, and then proceeded to go up to the rooftop restaurant, where it was a magnificent meal celebrating us, just the four of us. Drinks were involved and a great food, but you were overlooking Oslo. You could see the sunset of Oslo, and then overseeing the harbor and down below. So it was so much fun to spend that time. I was super, super tired, and so my funny little story is, because I'm always the one who gets up early and really never has a problem. And I set my alarm. I set it very low because I didn't want to disturb people. And, you know, long story short, I woke up at 9 o'clock when Julie called me and said, "Penny, we overslept. They're boarding the bus for the Oslo tour." And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not making it. And Julie had not gotten up too much more before myself, and so she stuck around with me, and we decided that we would either spend the day not with them, or we would catch up with them somewhere. So got dressed really, fairly quick. And then we walked over to the Opera House, which is over on the harbor, where we thought we would meet up with them according to the kind of like itinerary that I had in my mind. And so it was a lovely walk. It was a beautiful morning. We could see the city and see people out and about, lined up to get waffles. I'll talk about those in a little bit. And then while we were outside the harbor, on the harbor side of the Opera House, we called our friends Jelaine and Kendra, and they said, Gita said, meet us at the Folk Museum. That's probably the better spot. So they were at the Stone Garden looking at it. So we headed back to the hotel, grabbed a cab, and went to the Folk Museum. And as we couldn't see where they were at, weren't sure what bus, but we didn't see any people. And so we were at the Norwegian Folk Museum, and Julie went in to get a pastry and a coffee at the little diner restaurant they had there, and saw Geetha and Carlos, met up with them. They got us into the Folk Museum. And so we were ready to meet up with the group. We went through the Folk Museum, just the Strickning part, which was the knitting, to see all of the sweaters that were behind the cases, the glass cases and display. And I have a lot of pictures of those, of sweaters, some inspiration for me, some belts, some small sweaters. I had taken pictures of some rose malling on some pieces that, because my mother-in-law rose mauled when she was alive in the beginning. And so it was a short trip to see those. It was so much fun to see that. And then we got on the bus. We were now with them, and we continued the trip to Oslo. The next thing that we went to was the Norwegian ski jump. And again, I have pictures of that, and they were on a small video, and they will be on the big video in the end. But that thing was amazing. I love, in the Olympics, the ski jump. I am amazed by that. And I didn't realize how much more amazed I was by it until I saw it. Because as you came upon it, and you're going up, right? You're going up the roads, and you see this thing in the distance that's like this. And it's just that, this piece that's just peeking out. And then you get closer, and you get to take pictures of the slope and where they have to go to come down. And the fun thing about it is, if you're not on one of these tours and you would have time, they do zip lining from the top down to the bottom. And what fun that would have been. So that was so cool to see, and to see where they do those, where they do the ski jumping. It was just fantastic. After that, we went to lunch, and I cannot even pronounce the place. It's legendary, Frognerstalleren. Frognerstalleren. That's not correct. I can tell you that right now. But it's legendary. It has beautiful paintings on the inside. Has a wonderful view of the Norwegian capital. Again, I have pictures of that going down, and the Oslo Fjord below, where we were served lunch. And our particular table, we sat with Connie and Nancy Thomas, and was lovely start to our lunch and getting to know them, and got to know them better on the cruise. Nancy Thomas was an editor for Vogue magazine, and also, I believe, for Knitters magazine, and it was delightful to spend time with them and kick off our time. Jelaine and Kendra, they met Moon and Diva, and delightful young ladies. Loved meeting them, spending time with them during the cruise as well, and following them along. So we did that. After that, we went through more tours, saw a lot of stonework, a lot of churches, out and about, not going into them, but seeing them as we go down, traveling down to the Oslo Fjord, and able to see from the other side, the Munch Museum, seeing their library, fantastic, and their opera house. Again, not going into them, just seeing the outside on the other side of the harbor, and got a little bit of a history from Elsa. and the glass sculpture that is in the fjord that is just sitting there, a huge glass sculpture, and it just turns by the wind and the sun, and it's just fantastic to see that. So some great photos about that. And after that, we headed back to the hotel. We were on our own for dinner, and we sat in the lobby for a little bit and spent some time with Diva and knitting, and then headed into the bar, on the main level, and had a wonderful dinner, just the 5 of us sitting there and getting to know everybody, Diva and her getting to know us. And so we had that evening and then headed back to our rooms for that night. And I set 3 alarms so that I would be up, because on the next day we were going to be going from Oslo to Bergen, and that would have been on Monday the 29th. And we had to have our luggage down by 7 a.m. and be back downstairs by 8 a.m. for a walk to the train station at 8:25. Our train was taking off for Bergen. Now, this is a fun thing too, which I loved when all of this happened. And this is the piece that Gita, I think, just did wonderfully. We took our luggage downstairs. We're taking the train from Oslo to Bergen, which is about 6.5 hours, right? Our luggage, I'm thinking, I'm going to have to tote this luggage. Our luggage got to go on a big white truck. That truck took our luggage from Oslo to Bergen via driving, so that when we got to Bergen at that hotel, our luggage was inside. And so we didn't have to tote that. That was fantastic. So took that, got a quick breakfast, met in the lobby at 8 o'clock. We walked down, about 10-15 minute walk to the train station. We were going to one gate departure and then found out it was another one, so we had to hoof it down. But long story, even maybe shorter, we got on the correct train and we began our ride, where they provided a sack lunch. And I could get gluten-free, which is wonderful. We got to watch the great scenery going by, knitting. We were all pretty much in a car and a half. And so we got to know more of our travel companions. And Julie had a great conversation with Sandra and Catherine about birds and things. They were, talking a lot about that. We got to know people, and Arne did a little fashion show of a sweater that he finished. And he is a quick knitter, guys. Quick. The things that he finishes on a cruise are just unbelievable. So anyway, we got to Bergen. No, we didn't. The train ended maybe an hour away from Bergen, and we all had to board a bus to go the last hour, which was fine. Knitting, again, my Musselburgh, I could haul it out, resting, sleeping. We got to the hotel late afternoon, evening in Bergen, and it's an older hotel. It had 2 elevators. One was at the back. The front one, you can maybe get 4 people in at a time. And our luggage was there. So our little group, and we met Beth from Oslo, who joined us in Bergen. And we just sat there in the lobby and waited for the lull to die down, and had a couple of Norwegian beers to celebrate. And then went up, took our luggage upstairs, and then came back down for a welcome drink with Arne and Carlos in our group. In their bar area, and then went to dinner, vegan buffet. And Norwegians, I don't know if they do this everywhere, but both on the boat and at this hotel, at both the hotels, it's buffet is buffet, unlike any buffet that you've ever seen. Lots of choices and options. I mean, that was really so cool to see so many options. Normal Norwegian foods and foods that maybe you might want to try. And so this was a fun evening. Went back to our beds, and the next day we did a tour of, we had to check out of the hotel, and we boarded a bus. I believe our luggage was on the bus. Yeah, it went on the bus, but we didn't have to worry about it at that point. Did a tour of Bergen on a bus, of the surrounding area. Our first stop was Hillsvåg. And at Hillsvåg, that is the oldest Norwegian yarn factory. And at Hillsvåg, we were by the owners, one of the brothers that owns it. We were giving a full tour of all of the stuff in the back of it, the backside of all the inner workings of it, and just amazing the different pieces of how yarn and fluff. And I've seen those things before. But still always amazes me the things that go into getting yarn ready for us to knit. So that was a really fantastic tour. At that point in time, we then could go to their shop and we could shop the yarns. And that's when a lot of people spent a lot of time buying yarns and souvenir yarns. That's where I couldn't make up my mind. I had not made up my mind. And so I didn't buy any yarn, but it was nice to sit and just watch other people. And they had a lot of samples. And I took a couple of pictures of possibles. And one of the sweaters Kendra bought the yarn for, and I loved it. And I had taken a picture of that one and one other that I was kind of thinking about that I might get the yarn down the road for. Leaning towards one of them in particular. So while we were at the yarn factory, we received our Mystery Knit Along yarn kit, and here it is. Came in this baggie, and it is Hillsvåg Ask yarn, and I'm going to share my project later with you. This is the yarn that we used for it, and we were gifted all of the same yarn. Everybody got cream, everybody got a navy. And some did a navy background, some did a navy background, some did a cream background. And I'm going to share that with you in a little bit as we go through that. So we received that. And after that, we did a little touring of Bergen and ended up at a place called Oleana for lunch. Now, Oleana was totally new for me. Oleana was a factory. They make fabrics. They make fabric. Yes, we saw the fabrics, but we also saw the garment pieces, and it was not knitwear like we knitwear, but more of a I don't know how to describe that. How do I describe that? More like ready to wear, some gorgeous pieces. I bought one piece that I can't share with you. Let's see. Okay. Oleana. Let's just made in and try and give you a sense of their product. Here it is. Drawn in thread is what they call it. Okay, and I hope bird hit. And it is. I don't want to say that it reminds me, but it reminds me of a yarn of a fabric that years ago that I had. So this, we saw the inner workings of Oleana. And it's sustainably, they do it sustainably, and have a collection. Just give you a feel for this. This is kind of cool. Okay. So we were able to see their workshop and how it's done. We got to go into one of the spaces that you could not take pictures, kind of like a design process, like a designer had sent something, and how they work with the designer on to make something that they want. But it's a flat fabric. It is not a knit, hand knit fabric. And so here's another one. and just some great collections, some great things. Fusing sharp and tailored looks with the softness of natural materials. From Norwegian wool and alpaca to our signature merino wool and silk blend, explore the ethics and aesthetics of our materials. And so there's a lot of, that's where they were going with that. So we got to see the factory. We got to see how they make some of the sweaters. And we had lunch there as well. They served a wonderful soup. And it was right overlooking the fjord. So the glass window was the fjord that we could watch. So we did that for lunch. And then we went up in Bergen. We went up to the pinnacle, which is all the way up above Bergen. And we could look out over Bergen, over the fjord. And we watched our ship come in, and we could zoom in onto the ship. Had a lot of pictures, spent some time up there just looking at all of Bergen and where we were going to take off from. So after that, we headed to Hurtigruten, to the embarkation, which was just like so cool. So cool because we got our luggage and we deposited it, and we had check-in, gave a credit card for incidentals on it, and we our luggage showed up outside our rooms. That was the end of my lugging my luggage. And so we did that. We had some welcome drinks. We had dinner in the main restaurant, which was a buffet that night. Unbelievable, again, the options and the possibilities there. It was just amazing. I just want to tell you a little bit about our ship. It's the Hurtigruten line, which is a Norwegian owned shipping company. Ours was the MS Midnight Sol, which was named after summer's midnight sun, which is 24-hour daylight in Arctic Norway. We did not have that. This particular ship has 251 cabins and 21 suites. And so we probably had about 400 people total on this. There are 9 decks. And they have a coastal team, expedition team. There are expeditions that you can take all journey long. They have the Torge restaurant is where we were at. There is a sauna that some took advantage of, not me. And then they had a shop. They have a laundry, and this was very interesting. So we did do laundry, but it was a busy place. There was 4 small washer and dryer and 1 big one. And I happened to get up one morning at 5 o'clock to do my laundry, and then discovered that they don't open it till 7, but I still was doing laundry and didn't realize the reason they don't open it until 7 is because there's cabins on both sides. And I'm like, sorry. But so it was prime. You had to just figure out when you were going to do your laundry. There was 9 decks. The 8th deck is where we spent a lot of our time, and the 8th deck you could see out as we're going up the coast, and you could sit and watch right on the edge of it. You could write. It was enclosed, and then all along the side, there were windows, so you could see the mountains as you went down in the hills and all of that. So, also on the 9th deck, the top deck, they had kind of the same thing, but you could go out on the deck, on the front and the back of the deck, and sit and spend some time out there, which we did, and I'll talk to you about that. My room was 620, and it was an obstructed view, but I want to tell you, my porthole, I could see out just perfectly. I had just a little part that looked like the end of the lifeboat, maybe, but I had a good view. It was well worth to do a single. I would do it again and again. There was bathrooms, I know, at least on the 8th and the 9th floor, which was wonderful, so you didn't have to go back to your cabin. And on 8th, we had a lovely coffee station that we could get a cup because we had the right card. and you had to pay for special coffees and drinks. We had a lovely bartender that brought us a waffle and brown cheese late in the trip because we had spent so much time with him. And that was wonderful. Oh my gosh, it was a waffle with the brown cheese in between and melted and brown cheese. Okay, I like it. Okay. A lot of it, no. But after he put it in there and melted it in like a toasted cheese waffle, wow, I was sold on that. And I almost brought some home. I thought, no, I really need to cut down on that stuff. But so that was a wonderful, wonderful boat. It was a ship that was small enough but large enough, right? And so we took off in the dark after probably 7:30-ish from Bergen. And what I want to tell you is about this, the ports that we went to. And I'm going to show you a picture of what all the ports. This is a working ship, ferry type ship. So during the middle of the night, they make stops all the way up the coast to drop things off, to pick up things, right? And so this is like the red is all of the ports that it stops at, going up the coast. And then on the way back, some of those that are in the middle of the night, some of those we would stop at on the way back, and you could get off to do those. But each time they're going up the coast, they're delivering and picking things up as well. One of the things that we learned, and this was during a educational type short lecture that Kendra attended, was that also the purpose between going up these port towns, the food that we're eating on the ship probably the next day or the next maybe second day is foods that are indicative of the ports that we had come from. So we got a lot of tastes of Norway and of the fish and the different cheeses and the different just the different foods that are indicative of about that from that particular region that we were in. And so we learned that. So there was a lot of interesting lectures along the way that people could go to. I know Jelaine attended a lot of them, and she learned a lot about a lot of things that they're doing, that Norway's doing, and are related to the ship and future thoughts. So after sailing out, got some wonderful views of the moon as we were coming out of Bergen, and I think it was about 10 or 10:15. I went to my room. It'd been another long day, and I was starting to get in my jammies and had my shoes off, and they have a phone in the rooms, and you can press this particular number, and then during the whole cruise, if there's important announcements that they want you to know about, they will break in over this intercom and let you know. And so the first night we are heading out of Bergen, and we hear the call that their northern lights are out there. Now, I'm thinking, I'm going to have the chance. I'm tired. And so I called Jelaine. I said, Jelaine, do you want to go up? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm going to get shoes on, my coat on, my camera ready, okay? And we headed out about 10:30 up to see the northern lights. Didn't know what I was looking for because we could not see them with the naked eye, but through simple iPhone, the minute you put it up with your camera on, you can see the northern lights. And I got wonderful pictures. And we spend quite a bit of time out there just looking at the northern lights. And I have a lot of photos. I've never seen them. I don't know that I will ever see them again, right? But I had to stay out. And so the ship was a little wavy. And so we sat down, we back up against something because as you're going back, you want to get the full effect. It was like, okay. And we sat down some and just an amazing, amazing start for the cruise, for heading out. It was just like, wow. That, if nothing else wonderful happens, this is it. I have died and seen heaven. Amazing, just amazing. So anyway, finally, I think maybe about midnight, there was a lot of people on the deck going out and getting pictures, and we were just amazed. And we heard the next day that this never, ever happens. You never see the Northern Lights on the first night. And so to mimic my friend Norma, it was Beshert. It was meant to be. Wow, wow, wow. It was just fantastic. So the next day we were ported outside Ålesund, I believe it was, and this was when there were excursions, and we were in the in a fjord, docked, and not docked at the edge, but we were out in the harbor, in the fjord. Sorry, in the fjord, surrounded by lovely, lovely views. And to get to land, you had to take a boat from there to land to go on your excursions. Some of the excursions were such that you would get off and you would go on your excursion, and then they would pick you up at the next port. Our boat would dock and you would come out. So some of the excursions along the way were that, and a lot of people took advantage. A lot of different excursions that you could go out to. Horseback riding. They saw there was a going up to the edge of Russia, seeing the gates, going into the tunnels and things like that. There was a midnight or 11 o'clock service in one of the churches that they went to. The music was beautiful, I heard, and just so there was a lot of different excursions to go on. On that day, on that Wednesday, we went up to, it was nice, and we went up on the deck on outside on deck 9, took our knitting and sat and just enjoyed a little bit of the waterfalls, the views, and Arne came up and knitted with us for a bit, and that was fun to do. But we just enjoyed the sunshine and just the surroundings of being in this fjord and seeing the mountains and the greenery. It was still at that point, it was still green, so it was wonderful. The next day, we landed in Trondheim and set off for downtown Trondheim. It's about a half an hour walk. So to do that, it was not something that I wanted to do, so that we caught a taxi to Husfliden. And I'm going to tell you about Husfliden in just a sec. When I get to that point, let's see in thing. Trondheim was a fun stop. There was a lot of things that you could go and look at, a lot of shopping. We did go down to one of the shops and got some souvenirs. And good gracious, Penny. Sorry about that. Well, anyway, Husfliden. It's a indicative of a Norwegian, all the Norwegian crafts. I hate that I can't find the thing because I really wanted to tell you more about it. Husfliden, here we are. Husfliden is a network of Norwegian craft stores specializing in traditional and modern Norwegian handcrafts. They had yarn, they had all the handcrafts indicative of Norwegian, old and new, and we got to see the bunad, where they make some of the bunads, the makers of some of them, and what the bunad is the Norwegian national folk costume. And so we got to hear a history about that, and you could shop some yarns there. And I just wanted to share a little bit about the Husfliden in Trondheim, the bunads. We got a little booklet. This is the indicative of the Norwegian costumes that they have for their major holidays, and it was fun to hear about the history on that. And what they do is the women's ones, they can make a little earlier than they will the men's, because sometimes these are handed down passed from, you know, mother to daughter, and they can be altered. But they don't do the men's until they really pass puberty and bulked up, maybe into their 20s or maybe 30s, because their body changes. And these are not, they're not a cheap thing to do. They're in the tens to $12,000 to $20,000. And so you don't want to have to remake one of these by any means. So we got to hear the history about that and how they're made in several areas in Norway, and they're indicative of the area that it's in. And so then maybe if you live in Trondheim, you send yours up to Aalesund to be done, because that's where you live and that's where you celebrate. We were lucky on late in the trip to see Sondre, who is one of the expedition guys, and he came in during one of our lectures, one of our last lectures with Arne and Carlos, full dress in his bunad. And it was wonderful, wonderful to see. So we got to see that. Did a little bit of touring around Trondheim, and then we had limited amount of time there, a few hours, so we caught our a taxi back to the ship, because it was taking off from Trondheim. Then we had the course of the week. The days, a couple of weeks, dinner was served in the same restaurant, and we had, like I said, several nights there was buffet. There was always buffet for breakfast and for lunch. Plenty for me, who is a little particular. I love fish and things. There was plenty in that huge buffets. If you went hungry, it's your own fault, because there was multiple runs of that. Several of the dinners that we had were 3-course meals, where it was indicative of the area that we were in. There was an appetizer, there was a entree, and then there was a dessert. And first night up on that, it was okay. It was, sometimes the soups were delicious when we had those. Soups were delicious on the buffet. There wasn't one that I didn't take. The first night when we had our course meal, my dessert was ice cream, and I had aquavit on it. And aquavit's a kind of alcohol, and I loved it. Delish. That was wonderful. Over the course of the weeks, a couple of weeks, one night I had reindeer sausage and reindeer meat. And I'll tell you that reindeer sausage was pretty okay. The reindeer meat, I could not eat it. It was a little bit too red in the middle for me. It was very compressed. I had a reindeer gravy where it was like really ground up on the buffet one of the nights. It was delish. So there was one night that Kendra and I went to the bistro, because if you don't like fish or you didn't like what the menu was, you knew what the menu was ahead of time. So it was like there was nothing on that one that night of the course meal that I just didn't. There wasn't anything either one of us wanted. And we got a burger in the bistro. Had to pay for it, but it was good. So we did discover afterwards, too late, that if there is one of those meals that you do not like, you can do a one-time only. You can tell your server in the main restaurant that you want a burger from the bistro, and they will give that to you as part of your meal. So one time only. We didn't know that until it was too late. And that's fine. That's no worries. So then that night, as we are going out, we go through, it's dark, and we go what we call, we're on our way up to Trollfjord, and we go through Trollfjord, which is a very narrow passage. And at that point in time, our weather is fantastic. It's smooth as glass. And that is kind of a thing that you want to remember for later, because I think Arne said, it was too good to be true. But anyway, we went through Trollfjorden at night, and so you couldn't see all of the things, but they would shine the light. And as part of the kind of fun part about going up through the Trollfjorden, Sandra and Catherine and I went up and partaked of, in commemoration of going through Trollfjorden. We went through, was spiced rum and black tea and we got to keep the cup. You had to buy it, but of course it was warm. It was wonderful to do up on the top deck as to commemorate going through that at that point in time. So that was super fun, and I'm definitely going to try that hot toddy version of that this winter at my house. So we did that on the way through to commemorate, and that was super fun and a nice thing to have. So. Next up, next up, let's go back. And I know this is going long. Thank you for sticking with me if you still are, or if you're coming back. Give you, maybe a short version of that, going and doing. We crossed the Arctic Circle, Kendra and I, and we all went upstairs so we could have our pictures of the little sphere that sits out there commemorating it. It was windy, it was chilly, and we continued on up. Our next stop, or next major point of interest, was the top of the world, what is Seachange. That was on Monday, which is a couple of things. Before we got to there, we were at the top of Norway, which was the North Cape. That was on Sunday the 5th. And we went to Honningsvåg. We went on a bus up, and you could tell then at that point in time, there's no greenery, there's no trees. The reindeer live up there, the Samis. We heard a little bit about them. And the reindeer are under their control. They're owned by the Samis. And we heard about how they come and they go, and we winded up and went to the North Cape, which is the furthest most spot you can get. A lot of rock. It overlooks everything. You can see Russia if you look at the right place. It's windy, it's chilly. It was wonderful to see this big, huge another sphere out there. Luckily, there was a museum of sort that you could go through that was warm, a little restaurant we could spend time in, a gift shop, so we did that. It was just fantastic. And then came back to the ship, and then the next day was Seachange, and that is our turning point, really turning back down, and we're going south, back down again, and hitting some of those ports, during the days. So went by Hammerfest, and then you could see some of the Alps out and far away, and then some went to, that's where they took the excursion in Hammerfest and did the candlelight music. On the way back then, again, on the 8th, which was Wednesday, we did the Lofton archipelago, and we're able to once again go through Trollfjorden if the weather was nice. And as it happens, the weather cooperated with us, and we were able to go through the Trollfjorden again and see it in daylight. Got a lot of lovely pictures there, and could see trolls in the rocks, if you looked hard enough. Went along Hegland Coast, saw the mountain range Seven Sisters, and then I believe then we had a lecture back down towards Trondheim, crossed the Arctic Circle again. And I have to tell you a couple of things. So we had such nice weather, right? Had such nice weather for so long, but we had several instances where, 2 instances in particular, where the first one, the open seas, when you go out into open seas, the weather can be choppy, and it was. And the first time we went out into open seas, they said, you need to go off of 8 and 9, go back to your room, just enjoy, some time. We're closing the elevators. It's really, really choppy, 7 to 8 meter winds. And it's windy. Just trust me. And so we did do that. The first time it happened, I didn't take anything. I just went back. That's before they told us to go back to our rooms. The next time, a little bit more. That's when they said closing it down, and I took a got one of the Dramamines from Catherine and Sandra, and I just went down and laid down. And then we had two more instances. The other one, they were like, they closed the elevators down and suggested that you go back to your room. I took Dramamine then as well, because to me, and it didn't affect me at nausea while, if I'm going to say that, but affected my head, my equilibrium, and it was starting to give like a semblance of a headache type thing. And so I just went back down into my room and just enjoyed some time there. Julie and some others stayed up on 9, and you could see the pictures they had later. The waves came up and over the 9th deck, which was ahead of them. The nice thing about our rooms is they also had TVs, and you could zoom into one of the channels, and you could see you could see where you were going out and above. And so that day I put it on, and you could see how the waves were coming. And I also got some photos, some video out my porthole, and you could see a ship that was going along and just how rocky it was. So anyway, those were kind of the things that I wanted to share just in case. So coming across the Arctic Circle, because the weather was really windy, we could not go out on the 9th. There was a little ceremony when we went up, and everybody would put their suggestion, their tip in to say when we would make the Arctic Circle going up the coast. And the winner got a nice little memento of that. And then everybody else who was out there had to sit down and get ice down their back. I did not partake of the ice down the back, but a lot of people did. And the nice thing is I did get a nice little certificate saying that I crossed the Arctic Circle going up. And on the way back, because it was so choppy outside, we were unable to go out on the deck to do a ceremony of anything. They did it on our deck on 8th, and it was to commemorate. You would take a teaspoon of cod liver oil for health and vitality with a champagne chaser. And several of us are sitting back, and I think it was Julie and I and probably Kendra and probably Jelaine. We were all like, I'm not doing that. Ugh. One of our new friends came back and said, you get to keep the spoon. And we're like, okay, we're doing it. So we got in line. I have some great pictures of Julie getting hers and she of me. And we got to keep the spoon. And the spoon commemorates our trip that we went, from Bergen to Kirkenes. Talks about that. And then on the back, it has the world's most beautiful voyage. And so we got to keep our spoon and then a champagne chaser, which was lovely. So that was kind of like a nice thing to kind of round out the end of our trip. We came back to Bergen and had to check out of our rooms at 10 o'clock and spent from 10 to 3-ish, lunch was served. Spent it on 8 with everybody else. And again, the nice thing about this is I was worried about luggage. We had our luggage out by our elevator, the floor we were on, and our luggage came and went to a conveyor belt. And as we got into Bergen, we were disembarked by floor. And when we got into the terminal, our luggage came down a conveyor belt. We got it. We got in a bus and they took us to the airport. Unfortunately, miscommunication. They were supposed to take us to our hotel and they did not. So we had about 10-15 minute walk in Bergen, from Bergen airport to our hotel when nearby, schlepping our luggage. So that was, told me a couple of things. Pack lighter, better luggage that rolls better on cobblestones and on odd things. Although I say pack lighter, I don't think I would. I commiserated that I hadn't taken more of my sweaters that I loved with me because I would have wore a different sweater every day. And maybe I would have taken another pair of blue jeans so I didn't have to do laundry as much as I did. But all's well. It worked out well. We went to our hotel in Bergen. There was probably about 10 or 12 of us. We started heading towards the bar and kind of met up there. And staying at the hotel. Only the four of us, and then Catherine, I believe, were leaving early in the morning. So we arranged a cab so we didn't have to walk at 4 o'clock in the morning to the hotel through the parking garage and all of that. All of us had a lovely dinner together. We all had burgers and fries that were delish, were the bombs, and just loved that. And so Catherine and I shared a ride to the hotel, took off from Bergen, and once again went from Bergen to Frankfurt. Not doing that again. I would try another option. Landed in Frankfurt, did the whole spiel again. Luckily, we had people to see and get us through there. Did a day flight, and it was like lovely thing of leaving Bergen though, to go to Frankfurt. I had 3 seats to myself, so I could stretch out on that, and got to see the sunrise as we were leaving. So headed to Frankfurt, did that whole thing, headed out from Frankfurt to O'Hare. It was an all-day trip. Of course, we're coming back, you know, and so I'd been up since 2 a.m. that morning, Bergen time, got back into O'Hare. Oh my gosh, international, and thankfully we had wheelchairs. And so there was a guide, there were the people getting us to where they were at. It was 90 minutes, hour and a half to get to where we needed to go. But thankfully we had some help for those of us who could not walk that far. And so that was nice. That was a great thing to do. I appreciated that so much because we were on all kinds of levels and trains, and the young men who had us, when we got back where you had to take your luggage, they shoved the luggage over there and you're like, oh, I hope my luggage makes it. And my other bag, and helps you, gets the bins, and he's pulling things out. If you got your laptop in here, he's pulling the laptop out. You got water, he throws that away, your liquids. I walk through the thing and get through the TSA, and then at that point in time, we've lost. Julie's went on to her way, and Kendra's in another gate away from us because she's going back to Indy, and Jelaine and I are heading to ours for Peoria, flight that we had several hours later. So we hung around, our gate, and then boarded our plane, and the last plane into Peoria. And I swear to goodness, we got on the plane, and Jelaine and I were in the very last seats. I've never sat in the last seat. It's a small United Express. The bathroom is here. The door starts to open as we're taking off, and I have to shove the bathroom door over. 14 rows. And we're up and we're seeing this magnificent sights of O'Hare. And I have watched O'Hare planes take off in the middle of the night. So we're watching that, and it's just gorgeous. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be an hour. And at that point in time, my knees are antsy. They're like, you have been bent too much. You've been sitting too much and for a long time today. And so I'm like, oh, I'm getting antsy, and in the back of the plane. One stewardess, an older man, heavy set, was on the plane. That was the stew, and came down twice for garbage. That's all you get. I'll take your garbage for you. But anyway, and I'm settling back and thinking, how am I going to, and all of a sudden, I look out and I'm like, we're not even climbing into the clouds. We never get above the clouds. And I see more lights, and I hear Peoria, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in Peoria already. Shortest flight I've ever taken from there to here. And we landed, got our luggage. My son picked me up, and I was home by 10:30 that night. I was super tired, but all I wanted was pizza. Cooked a pizza, fell asleep in the chair, drooling, and thought it's time to go to bed. Eventually, I got back into sync. It took a couple of days, even though I had prepared for this going over. It worked out fine, and I finally got my act together for sure on that. So, a lovely trip. Now, for knitting kind of sort of related things, just to finish up here. We did a mystery knit along. We received the kit, like I said, at Hillsvåg. And then I believe the next day we got a clue. And then about every other day we got 4 clues for a hat. Each piece we'd go up and get. And I used my Osk yarn, and we all did the same design. And so here is my finished reindeer hat. Now I'm going to tell you, I took size 2s and 3s needles, and in hindsight, I wish I would have taken my Chiagoos with me, because I knew early on that it was going to be too small. I don't have enough to come down over. I have a weird ear problem, and so I knew that it wasn't going to be long enough, and I have blocked this, but I continued on, and I definitely will make another one out of my leftovers. And I would just like it to come down a little bit further, and you can see what I'm talking about, because it doesn't, I want it to come down, and it has to be, the rib I want down here, so another inch or so. But I love doing it. It was so much fun knitting along with others. And like I said, Kendra did hers just the opposite with the cream background, and some put pom-poms on it. Some did those like Tyrolean type things. There was an I-cord that I got a lovely photo of somebody's knitting. So this was it. We got 4 clues, and was done relatively early, and it was fun to see others that did it. We had a couple of new or not so, we had a brand new knitter who knit this hat from the get-go. Cynthia's roommate, Lynn, I believe, never knit before, learned how to knit, and did this all. She did the color work all in her cabin until the very end, because she wanted to concentrate on it. And Moon knew how to knit, but she was rediscovering, I think, those skills, and she had a beautiful hat. Diva learned some new stuff as well, and so that was super, super fun to watch some of those new knitters. So that was the project that we got in our tote bag. One of my souvenirs, like I said, that's the extent of the yarn. I felt like I needed yarn, and so Jelaine went off the boat one day when Kendra and I did not go off the boat, and we said, if you go to the yarn shop, buy us a souvenir skein of yarn, we'll reimburse you. We'd love to have turquoise, but it has to be 100% Norwegian. We don't want anything that's not. And so she came back with a Hilsvag yarn for both of us. We got the same yarn. I do not even know how to pronounce this, but it is Varda, I guess, Varda. A little bit loosely woven, and a little bit heavier than what we've been working on with, but that's my souvenir. And I'm going to figure out something to knit with this as a souvenir that is just for me. So totally excited about that. I did have a souvenir. The grandkids all got ornaments and Arctic chocolates from Norway, from the up in the sphere, and their Arctic, Norwegian lights, northern lights. And then I had to get an ornament for myself as well to commemorate. And this is kind of what I'm looking at for a sweater, I think, duplicating this particular one. So I also bought a pair of earrings. I don't have those here, but I bought those on the Cape as well. So that's it in a long, I'm so sorry this is so long, but that is it in a nutshell. I will say this, it was the best times. And would I do this again? Yes, if I had never done it before. I loved every part of it. I would like to go back to Norway and just delve into some of these places longer, and just, set out on foot. Trondheim, Tromsø, all those other places. I would like to do that. I wore all of the knits that I took with me. I still wish that I would have taken some of my other knits, because my navy vest became a little redundant, I felt like. And maybe, so I would have liked to have taken more knits. Fun fact, yesterday, because I follow all things Norway, Tromsø had snow, major snow yesterday. So a week later, they had snow. We totally missed that for sure, because it's starting to get wintry there. So I would totally do that again. I would do Arne and Carlos cruise again. I cannot say enough about how kind they were and how welcoming they were for everybody, along with Gita from Aller Travel. The ship was wonderful. It was different than I had expected. Food was great, and all along the way, I had such a good couple of weeks, and I am such that, and I know this now in hindsight, when I've known this all along. You know, I've told this before, but I am I'm not a shopper. I don't. I love shopping, but I do it with intention. And so I'm not one of those that wants to go out and just shop everything. I'm also not one that wants to delve into all. I didn't do any of the expeditions. I prefer, when I go to Florida, sit on the beach and watch the water, enjoy the views. And that's what I did on my cruise. I enjoyed the cruises, the views a lot, the people. I didn't enjoy the time limits we have, and when you don't know where you're going or how you're going to get there, or that there's not a cab on every other, street that you can hail. So I didn't enjoy that piece. That it's the unknown. It's the unknown. But then, thankfully, I had lovely traveling companions that went with me that could guide me. Julie, she knows everything about international travel and travel. She travels alone, and so there's no fear there. So that was so much fun. Excuse me. That was so much fun. To do with them, and I loved every moment there. It was so much fun to travel with friends, starting out in Peoria, meeting up in Chicago, and then doing Norway with them. They're good friends. I've been friends with Jelaine and Kendra and Julie for a long time. They know things, right? They know things, and just I can't tell you how much. How wonderful it was. Sorry about all of that. I encourage you all, go out and look at Arne and Carlos if you're able to. You will have a good time on all of them. You will meet some amazing people out there in the world, knitters and non-knitters, their husbands, and the kindness that is really, truly out there. I'm telling you, it's there. And so very much fun. So thank you if you're here, if you stuck with me. I don't think I'll tack the pictures on here because it's an awfully long thing. I might do a separate one more look at the whole trip of Norway. So thank you. I will see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll be moving on to other things, right? For sure. I hope you have a nice couple of weeks. Happy Halloween. And when we turn around, it's going to be November. And oh my gosh, it's all the things. So knit something fun. Look at a trip. And until next time, bye.